Okay, you're live.
All right. I want to welcome everyone to the Local Superintendents Advisory Council meeting. As mandated by KRS 156007, the charge of the council is to advise the Chief State School Officer and the Kentucky Board of Education concerning the development of administrative regulations and education policy. The Chief State School Officer shall submit all proposed administrative regulations and educational policies for review by the council prior to seeking approval of the Kentucky Board of Education. We welcome two new LSAC members to today's meeting. The Legislative Research Commission has appointed Dennis Messer, Superintendent of Barberville Independent Schools, and Charla Six, Superintendent of Anchorage Independent Schools, to the council. Welcome. If you are attending virtually, we do ask you to ensure your video is streaming and that you can be seen throughout the duration of the meeting. And at this time, we will have a roll call.
Brian Alexander.
Present.
Kirk Biggerstaff.
Here.
Harry Burchett.
Here.
Tom Cochran. Will Hodges.
Here.
Dennis Messer.
Here.
Sheila Mitchell. Charla Six.
Here.
Russ Tilford.
Here.
David Trimble. And Henry Webb.
Here.
Chair, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Next, we welcome Dr. Meredith Brewer and representatives. Oh, I'm sorry. Got a little confused there. To begin our meeting, we invite Commissioner Fletcher to provide an update on the Kentucky Department of Education.
Thank you, Chair Biggerstaff. And first of all, I'd like to also congratulate Superintendent Messer and also Superintendent Six. I will share one quick story. Superintendent Six's dad was my high school baseball coach back in the day, so our paths went in different areas. But I thought that was a fun little story there. And of course, Coach Six was phenomenal. He was one of my favorite people going through high school. So Superintendent Six, it's good to see you, and good to see you again. It's been a while, but again, congratulations on being appointed, and also congratulations to a good friend Dennis Messer too, as being a part of this group. A few updates I'll talk to the group about. First of all, you've seen in the news all the interagency agreements happening at the federal level, things being shifted from U.S. Ed to the Department of Labor and other things. I've met with our team. So far, we're not seeing any changes as far as funding, which is one of the most important, is the most important thing. The only one area that we're a little worried about is potentially what could happen with Perkins when something moves from the U.S. Ed to the Department of Labor. But right now, all the funding systems, the funding mechanisms, all the funds still flowing. Now, we do have some points of contact that have changed. And so that's been our biggest concern, is what happens with technical assistance. Like, we have a question, who do we call? How do we get those answers? And of course, too, when we turn in, let's say, our state assessment plan, the person that's approving that plan, how much background do they have in assessment and accountability? So those are some worries that we have. But so far, from the funding aspect, we're pleased to say that we haven't seen, due to these interagency agreements, we haven't seen any changes as far as funding. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. Also, too, big week, we did get our state accountability numbers out. I just wanted to reiterate some numbers that I would like to point out. First of all, in reading, we did have some increases across the board. If you look at our reading in 2022, the percent of proficient distinguished in 2022 was 45%. In 2025 was 49%. In middle school, it was 44% in reading, and now 47% as proficient distinguished combined. Then in high school, went from 44 to 46%. We had increases overall throughout that time frame, with a couple of years where it seems as if it stayed stagnant for a little bit. In mathematics, in 2022, our elementary percent proficient distinguished was 38%, now 42%. Middle school went from 37% to 37% to 41%, and high school from 36 to 40% proficient distinguished. As far as some other numbers, I think these are outstanding numbers. When we look at the number of red schools in the elementary, it decreased from 2024 in elementary from 59 to 34. Middle school went from 24 to 10. And high school went from 17 to 10 red schools. Now, again, this is not the same as the CSI status, because CSI, it's the bottom 5%. It's a percentage. It has to be a number. But we set the bar as part of, LSAC also approved the cut scores for the red, yellow, orange, blue, and green, and based on those numbers, that's the decreases we've had. And in blue, in the elementary, went from 97 schools to 117. In middle school, we went from 27 blue schools in 2024 to 55. Then in high school, we went from 25 blue schools to 46 over that year. So some good numbers to share there with you. So congratulations. I saw a lot of celebrations across social media, a lot of scores that people are very proud of. And again, we still have a long way to go, but we've shown some progress. So very pleased with that as we've seen so far. Also, too, I've provided some information to those that are here in person. I'll be happy to send that also to those that are online. As we go into our legislative session, I thought it was very important for each of you to see the legislative priorities. If you haven't already, I've given you the legislative priorities that have been approved by our Board of Education, and you can see everything from universal preschool to HQIRs, CATS funding, full-day kindergarten, school safety, and many other items. But again, I think it's very important that you see the things that we're advocating for as we move forward. Another item that you have is the additional budget requests. These are budget requests that are over and above our base budget from last year to this year. Interestingly enough, I was the keynote at CASBO recently on Friday, and I actually provided all the additional budget requests to our CFOs that were in attendance and others in finance, and had them to rank them. Actually, I had the group to give a top 5, and I will say that their top 4 matched our board's top 4 exactly in the same order. So you see the additional budget requests and I think that it shows the alignment with our districts, with our board, with the Kentucky Board of Education also too. The last handout that you have, and I apologize for those online that are not seeing these, but I'll send those a little bit later. I'll have Dr. Jones send that to you later. I've given you we're lobbying, of course, for a new accountability model. And what you see in front of you is a spreadsheet that has the breakdown of what that new accountability model will cost. I'll briefly go over that, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about any of these. But if you look at the very top row, I've given you what it would cost for year 0 and year 1 if the the General Assembly would approve going to an adaptive assessment that we've talked about. In year 0, that $11 million we still have to give and score and put on the school report card the old assessment, and you can see the cost there, which is $11 million. And then in year 1, we'd still have to score and report the old assessment in preparation for giving the new assessment. The next line gives you the summative assessment for the adaptive assessment that we're proposing, and you can see the cost. So over the next 2 years, you're looking at essentially about $17 million in additional costs, if approved by the General Assembly. The next box has all what we're asking for to help districts with local accountability, regional innovation specialists, also the external evaluator, and other items for a total of $3.56 million per year. And then the optional assessments. You know, we could go in and the General Assembly approves all parts of the accountability, and they could say, okay, even the opt-in portions, what you're seeing there would be an interim, math interim assessment, much like your MAP STAR iReady that you're doing now. That would be as if every single district opted in to our interim assessment that would be aligned with the summative. And you can see the cost as we move forward. One thing I will talk just a little bit about is something that doesn't get mentioned, doesn't get a lot of questions, is, the new accountability model still proposes science assessments, but it's at the 5th grade, 8th grade, and I think the 10th grade level. But what we're proposing on the science is to have off-grade science assessments, which are not a part of the accountability model, could be used as formative assessments for districts. So there'd be a 3rd grade science test, if you want to give one, that's aligned with what would be the summative in the 5th, and also a 4th grade test, so that you could have some data to work with kids throughout their 3rd, 4th, and into that 5th grade year. So there is a off-grade science that's a part of that. The back page has essentially the regardless of what we do in accountability, if we stay with the same model, that smaller spreadsheet on the back is what we have to pay. For example, we still have to have alternate assessment. Regardless of which system that we have, we still have to have college admissions exams, which is our SAT now. The access and alternate assessment is also on there. Kindergarten screeners, and you can see the other information. So that's the cost of what the additional parts of the assessment accountability that we have to pay for regardless of what system we go into. So, again, I think it's important for you to see some of the information as far as our legislative priorities from here at KDE, also our additional budget requests over and above, and then also too, you can see what we're proposing, and again, what we're projecting as the cost of the new accountability model if all parts are added in from the General Assembly. So I'll stop there. Be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Does anybody have any questions? All right, thank you, Commissioner Fletcher. Now we welcome Dr. Greta Hilton and representatives from the Office of Special Education and Early Learning to discuss proposed amendments to 2 different regulations.
Chair Biggerstaff, if I may, before we begin, I would just like to ask our virtual members to please turn on their cameras for the duration of the meeting. And I'd also like to announce the arrival of members David Trimble and Tom Cochran joining virtually. Thank you, Chair Biggerstaff.
Yes, if you are attending virtually, please turn your camera on. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we have a couple of regulations with proposed amendments before you. The first one is 707 KAR 1002, which includes the definitions for special education, and specifically, we're going to talk about caseload and class size. And then the second one ties directly into this one, and it is 707 KAR 1350, which establishes the requirements for making placement decisions for students with disabilities. And again, that's going to be about caseload and class sizes and the waivers that your districts have submitted in the past. And so I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn Morrison, the Director of the Division of IDA Monitoring and Results, to walk us through those proposed amendments.
Good morning, Superintendents. I'm just going to walk through line by line, share information about the recommended changes here. So starting on page 3 with line 16, we are removing 4 special classes to clarify caseload and adding overseeing the management of. So the new definition for caseload would read, caseload means the number of children with disabilities assigned to a teacher of exceptional children for the purpose of overseeing the management of individualized, specially designed instruction and related services. On the next page, page 4, line 12, we're removing the definition of class size for resource classes because we are adding a new definition for special class to make the definitions and regulations easier to interpret and implement. The next 2 are just some cleanup changes to the language. Page 4, line 15, changing specifically designed to specially designed. Then page 5, lines 3 and 5, we are adding or her, so it will now read his or her. Page 11, line 16, we added the definition for paraprofessional. Page 12, line 20, we're clarifying that this is the definition for parentally placed private school children to align to the federal language. Page 15, line 3, we're adding a definition for special class to make the regulations easier to interpret and implement. And special classes will have maximum class sizes in the 350 regulation that we'll share with you in a moment. And then page 15, line 9 is another cleanup, just removing the hyphen from specially designed instruction to align with federal language and current usage. And then updating the citation for the Kentucky academic standards. That's all the changes with the definitions. I'll pause there, Chair, to see if you want to take action on this one before I move to the next one.
Does anybody have any questions? All right, we can go on to the next.
Okay. So the next one, the next regulation, 1350, Starting on page 1, line 14, we're adding a reference to KRS 157-360, which requires the Commissioner of Education to enforce special education maximum class sizes set by the administrative regulations and adopted by the Kentucky Board of Education. Page 3, line 13, we're providing clarity for implementation in a few different ways. One is removing the previous limits set as maximum class sizes for resource classes and adding maximum class sizes for special classes, which we now have defined in the definition so that that's clear what we're meaning by that type of class. We're adding language on how to determine the maximum class size when there are students from more than one disability category in that special class. And then to relieve districts of the burden of submitting waiver requests, we've amended the regulation to reflect the numbers we have previously approved through this process. This will not impede districts from seeking a waiver under 707 KAR 5170, given the district can demonstrate that the waiver will improve the operation of the school without hindering student academic achievement or improve student academic achievement at the school while continuing to meet all the federal regulations. All right, then page 4, line 24. We're removing the reference to resource classes. Page 5, lines 1 through 6, these two subsections are just being moved from section 2 to section 3. And then page 5, lines 7 through 22, we're updating the section title to reflect caseload for special classes and not caseload for resource teachers. And then we're using the numbers, again, that we would have approved through the previous waiver process. We're just going ahead and building those into the regulation. And then establish maximum caseloads for teachers of special classes in section 3. Page 6, lines 1 through 9, we're adding clarification regarding how to determine maximum caseload when a teacher of special classes are assigned student records for more than one disability category. How to determine that maximum caseload when teachers provide services solely through collaboration, and then how to define the maximum caseload when teachers have a combination of collaboration and special classes. Also clarify that when teachers of special classes are assigned student records of more than one disability category, the maximum caseload shall be determined by using the disability category of the majority of the students. And then the last change, page 6, line 10, adds section 4, citing 157-360 as authorizing superintendents or local school councils to request a waiver relating to maximum class size for special classes. I'll turn it back over to you, Chair, for any questions.
Have any questions? All right, I would ask the council to entertain a motion to recommend approval of the amendments to 707 KAR 1002 definitions and 707 KAR 1350 placement decisions. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. At this time, we will have a roll call vote.
Brian Alexander,
Yes.
Kirk Biggerstaff,
Yes.
Harry Burchett,
Yes.
Tom Cochran,
Yes.
Will Hodges,
Yes.
Dennis Messer,
Yes.
Charla Six, Russ Tilford,
Yes.
Russ Tilford,
Yes.
David Trimble,
Yes.
Henry Webb.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Now we have Dr. Meredith Brewer and representatives from KDE Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness to present proposed amendments to 704 KAR 3370 Kentucky Framework for Personnel Evaluation.
Good
Welcome.
morning. So we have before you today quite possibly the smallest amendment that has been brought to LSAC. So we are aligning to statutory change that occurred through House Bill 48 in this last session, moving the required evaluation period from 3 years to 5 years. And so that is just a technical amendment so that the statute and the regulation are in alignment.
All right. Anybody have any questions? All right, I would ask the council to entertain a motion to recommend approval of the amendment to 704 KAR 3370, Kentucky Framework for Personnel Evaluation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second. At this time, we will have a roll call vote.
Brian Alexander.
Yes.
Kirk Biggerstaff.
Yes.
Harry Burchett.
Yes.
Tom Cochran.
Yes.
Will Hodges.
Yes.
Dennis Messer.
Yes.
Sheila Mitchell. Russ Tilford.
Yes.
David Trimble.
Yes.
Henry Webb.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you all. That was short. Now we have Associate Commissioner Matt Ross and representatives from the KDE Office of Finance and Operations will present the final item for review and action, a proposed amendment to 702 KAR 3130, Internal Accounting. Sounds exciting.
Can you hear? Good morning. My name is Matt Ross. I'm the Associate Commissioner in the Office of Finance and Operations. Steve, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Steve Lyles, Assistant Director in Division of District Support.
And Lindsay Swartz, Policy Advisor.
So this regulation is the regulation that incorporates by reference the Red Book. So while we give it a sort of generic plain name, we hide within it the Red Book. So the last time the Red Book was amended was in 2019. So as time and technology moves along, we need to revisit every now and then. So when we do this, and I'll let Steve talk to his process, but he typically puts together a working group of finance officers and to look at what's been, how the landscape's changed. And then we try to review and clean up and modernize where appropriate. So I'll let Steve sort of, there's no real big changes, nothing real controversial, but I think there are some things in here that you'll recognize as probably benefits, things your districts do already, but now we've got a better way to account for them. So Steve, why don't you talk about your process and then sort of the major changes?
All right. As Matt mentioned, 2019 was the last iteration of Red Book, and it was actually effective in November of 2019, and then soon after COVID hit. And that's what brought about a lot of the changes that we're going to discuss today is, like he said, the technology and things. And so a lot of the things that are added did not exist prior to 2019, 2020. And so, we had a work group of several finance officers, had auditor and a trainer of Red Book to convene. And we went over the things that we've received, via emails, phone calls, trainings, and such over the years that we thought needed to be either added or changed, modified in the current Red Book. And so I will go over a few of those items. I've got a list of 31. I'm not going to go over each one, but I'm going to highlight a few that are not controversial, but just more important, maybe more emphasis on those. And so one of the things that we did was added damaged technology fees to what is allowed in Red Book to be spent on. Another is interest earned in bank accounts. In the past, it was all housed in the school and used at the school. Well, now we've kind of opened that up and allowed interest earned on those bank accounts to be moved to district activity funds if the district so chooses. Another one that came about because of newer technologies, and for those of you who are familiar with the term Munis, that's kind of evolved into what Tyler now calls enterprise ERP. And ERP is Enterprise Resource Planning. So it's just a fancy name for what we've always called Munis. And so that's the new name for it. But that being said, a lot of schools, most schools prior to 2019 did their financials via EPES. And so it's just a software that allows school bookkeeping and financials to be maintained. But since then, many schools, many districts have shifted to doing those in, a lot of old timers still call it munis, doing it in munis at the district level. And so what you're able to do is have a bank account at the district level instead of at the school level if you're doing it that way. And so the checks get cut, the signatures get made at the district level and not at the school level. So we just made some language changes there to allow that, because it was just important to make that distinction. Another thing that many schools, and this amount has been around for many years, when there's money received, say by the school treasurer, any amounts over $100 received had to be deposited that day. So we raised that amount to $250. So that's not a big change, but it's just, to inflation and moving with the times, we've raised that amount from 100 to 250. Another big thing that changed, and I mentioned to a couple superintendents earlier, is when COVID hit, or prior to COVID hitting, all tickets, probably 99% of ticket sales were paper tickets. You had different color tickets. There was really an elaborate process to record those, the ticket takers, the collectors, and all of that. And there had to be two people who collected money at gate, whether it's athletics or a drama or a pageant or whatever the case might be. You had to have two people to provide some accountability for collecting money. Well, now if you use like GoFan and those kind of things, you can have one person collect ticket, because they're basically just scanning somebody's phone or something like that. And so if you're doing paper tickets, it's still two people need to be involved. But if it's an electronic version of ticketing, then one person can take up those monies. Because I've got kids in archery and drama and cross country and all kinds of things, and I never call anybody out, but there's a lot of cases, even with paper tickets, still it's just one person, and it should be two for that case. Another item we added in allowable expenditures is library books. In the past, it was considered an operating expense, but we decided as a group that that could be allowable from student activity funds. Another one that's now disallowable is talking about state tournament tickets. They're not allowed for coaches and administrators unless the school team is participating. The prior version just said, coaches and administrators could attend, but this time we added the stipulation, as long as your team is in the tournament, whatever the tournament might be. Another advent that came about due to technology is arbiter pay. And I don't know if some of you may be familiar or not familiar with that, but it's a third party who will pay referees and officials and those kind of folks. And it's really very helpful to the district, because it takes creating 1099s for all those people out of the district responsibility, and arbiter pay does all that work for you. There's a small fee, I'm sure they charge, but it's worth the trouble and the hassle of not having IRS audits being a possibility due to mishandling 1099s. Another item that we added is one about Venmo, PayPal, and there's a thing called Cash App. And district employees are not to use those through their personal account, because we've heard cases and instances of that happening, and so we specifically put it in the Red Book that's not allowed. Another big item that I get phone calls on several times a year, an external booster may buy a piece of equipment. And the one example I usually use is like a band might buy a big trailer, a semi-trailer to haul their stuff around. So the booster purchases it, but the prior Red Book says any purchases by the booster club go straight to the district, or it becomes district property. And that's still the case, but we added that, I've had calls of, well, what if it breaks down? Who does the maintenance? Districts sometimes will go ahead and pay that cost to maintain that equipment. But we've said now that if the district accepts it, the district is responsible for maintaining it. So if the district wants to leave it in the possession of the booster club, then they maintain it. And so we've made that distinction now, which was not really spelled out in the previous version. One other thing we added was external booster clubs must provide monthly bank statements to the principals of schools if requested. So that just provides another layer of internal control for what boosters are spending their monies on and raising their monies for. It'll give the principal and treasurer and even the finance officer at the district level an opportunity to go through bank statements and see how the money is being spent. Because a lot of cases, a lot of times in the past, it's been very hidden, very secretive. And so we're opening that up so the districts at least have a vision and a view of what those monies are spent on. And then the last thing, just 3 of the forms. I think there's 19 forms as part of the Red Book, and only 3 of them were changed. And actually, the first one is easy. It's we had a paper ticket sale, or it was just called ticket sales, but we've changed that to say paper tickets. And then we've created a brand new form for the electronic tickets, like for GoFan and things like that. And that's basically the highlights, I guess, of the changes. So nothing earth-shattering. Last time around, we made a lot of wholesale changes, but this is just more just refining it, as Matt said, with the times. And so I'll be glad to answer any questions, but are you going to go over the regulation? Okay.
So I think, we're happy to take questions. Steve's change document wasn't included in your packet, but we will make sure that you all get that because it's got more of the changes. That was an inadvertent oversight, and I apologize. So while not terribly exciting, it's very important stuff. We're happy to take questions. Like Steve said, when he had his work group, we made sure that the finance officer representatives were from various size districts so that we had a good representation. But yeah, we're happy to take any questions you might have. And then obviously, if you review and have additional questions or your finance officer has questions, just please have them reach out.
Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns?
So I have a question about, there's a piece in there about school trips with students, and normally we would, issue cash to the sponsor, and the sponsor would take care of that. I think there's a piece in there about using a pre-loaded debit card, some type of electronic card.
Right.
I don't know what you're calling it. But,
That's actually in this list.
can you explain that
Yeah.
process a little bit? And is that a shall or is that a may do that?
They're permitted, so it's a may.
Okay.
Yeah. So say there's a coach taking his team on a trip, and say it's going to be overnight. They're allowed to get a prepaid debit card from school treasurer and sign out for it. It'll have a certain amount put on there, so many meals. That's determined by the district, but how much per meal will be loaded on there. And then they can use that to buy meals and pay for hotel and those kind of things with that card. And then after the trip, they turn the card back in and along with the receipts. And then the difference, what's left, can get redeposited back into the school account.
So I'm assuming we do that through our normal banking institution and have a check and see if they provide that service.
Sure.
Most of those require a set amount on the card, so
Yeah.
I guess it'd carry a balance at all times, but then the bookkeeper would be able to.
Could reconcile the difference,
Right,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Any other questions? I would ask the council to entertain a motion to recommend approval of the amendment to 702 KAR 3130 internal accounting. Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. We will now do a roll call vote.
Brian Alexander,
Yes.
Kirk Biggerstaff,
Yes.
Harry Burchett,
Yes.
Tom Cochran,
Yes.
Will Hodges,
Yes.
Dennis Musser,
Yes.
Russ Tilford,
Yes.
David Trimble,
Yes.
Henry Webb.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you all very
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you.
I would like to thank everyone for a efficient, productive meeting. Our next meeting will be January 27th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Thank you. We are adjourned.